Already no intro today. I'm 7 minutes late. I admittedly I'm running around like a chicken with its head cut off today. I am running from meeting to meeting. I scheduled this for 7. I knew it wasn't going to be on time. Thanks for bearing with me. Looks like we got a few of you tuning in already. Welcome in. Lucas Wencl, the fantasy football fellas here. We are live. Sponge, what's up, dude? Thanks for tuning in, my man. We are out here. We are nearing the start of the fantasy football season. We got Dino Edits out here too. What's good? Jay Munch. What's popping? I would say brand new whip just hopped in, but that is not the truth. What's popping is quite literally my work life right now. We got NFL prods in. What's going on? Owen, thanks for tuning in. Sea Dog, what up? Just some popcorn ceiling in my apartment. Sied is here. What's good? What's good? Thanks for tuning in, y'all. We are going to go ahead. We are going to crush a draft over on Underdog Fantasy. I will be answering all of your fantasy football questions as well. If you want to hop in on this draft with us, code fellas over on Underdog Fantasy. You can go ahead. You will get a week 1 free square Brees Hall at half a total yard. They'll gift you. You'll get our fantasy football draft guide for 2024 for free as well upon your first deposit. You can come draft with us as well. Broken boy back again. NTT, what's good? What's good? Sea Dog, I am going to be doing my first fantasy football league. Any tips? Yes. I think I'll come back to this as we kind of go through this draft on Underdog as well. My guess is that your home league is probably on an ESPN, a Yahoo, a Sleeper right now. So Underdog probably doesn't apply to you directly, but as I'm kind of talking through this draft, hopefully some of my thoughts and tips will come out throughout that process as well. So yes, that will come. I'll come back to that question as well. I see a few other questions popping in here too, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and yep, Sea Dog is on Yahoo. Perfect. Yeah, I can kind of I can kind of talk through a few of my tips as well as we go through this Underdog draft. Jay Munch drafting Chase Claypool at the 1-1 after he's on IR and done for the season. I'll go ahead. I'm going to hop into Best Ball Mania 5 draft here. If you want to hop in again, code fellas over on Underdog Fantasy. I just realized this isn't up on the screen. We got to get that up on the screen. But let's go ahead and jump in here. We'll hop in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We're going to hop in here. Looks like we're waiting on 7 more. So if you want to join, come over to Underdog, get in a Best Ball Mania 5 contest. This is an interesting one. Do you think ETN at the 219? Is that supposed to be the 209 or the 219? This is a deep league. A 20-person league is a good pick. I've been trying to thin out mid-rounds for an upcoming home league. So if you're in a 20-man league and you're getting ETN at the tail end of that second round, ETN's already going at the tail end of the second round in 12-man leagues. So I think you'd actually be getting a value in a 12-man league. You'd be getting ETN in like the middle of the third round. Gosh dang it. We actually get, okay, I hate the 10th pick. The 10th pick is atrocious. It's awful. Don't get the 10th pick. There's your first tip, Sea Dog. Don't get the 10th pick if you can avoid it. Don't get the 10th, 11th, or 12th pick. Those are all disastrous if you ask me. But I think ETN, yes, at the 219 is definitely a good, 19th overall. Yes. So 19th overall would be like 7th pick of the second round. Yeah, I think that's a perfectly fine value. That's where I'm drafting ETN this year. I'm even drafting him a little bit earlier than that. But if you want some consistency there, I would 100% go ahead with ETN 19th overall. That's perfectly fine. Let's see. We got 10 seconds till the draft starts here. This is another one that's interesting. We'll see where CeeDee Lamb goes in this draft specifically as we've officially kicked off here. Am I fine drafting Lamb second overall? He just went 101 here. Even with him not reporting. I'm okay with it. I would prefer Tyreek Hill as Jamar Chase goes second overall here. I would prefer Tyreek Hill just because there's a safety element there with him, but I'm also not taking CeeDee Lamb later. My gosh, Christian McCaffrey. People that scared off by Christian McCaffrey in this lobby. He's gonna go 4th, 5th overall. I wouldn't take CeeDee Lamb later than 3 or 4. Like I wouldn't drop out of wouldn't let him drop out of the top 4 for sure. I wouldn't let him drop out of the top 3 even. I prefer Tyreek Hill, but if you take CeeDee Lamb there, like I'm not going to debate you on it. Like I think it's a perfectly fine pick still, even with the risk. Now, if we get 2 weeks from now and the regular season is a week away and CeeDee Lamb still hasn't reported, then I think we might be in trouble. Then I might be starting to panic a little bit more. But I think you're fine at this point doing it, as we're about to be on the clock here. I'll come back. We got a ton of questions pouring into the chat here, which is phenomenal. We'll get to all of those here in a moment. Holy cow, we're gonna have a lot of great options on the clock as we come up here. Looks like Justin Jefferson, he's probably gonna be autoed here. I'd be surprised if he makes it to the 110 after how decent Sam Darnold actually looked. Yeah, we're gonna get an auto pick here from Fieldman 77. There goes Jefferson. My guess is AJ Brown's going to go here, though. I would gladly take AJ Brown at the 110 if he slides. This is the range where, yep, there goes AJ Brown. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take Garrett Wilson, mostly because I hate starting running back. I'm going to avoid starting running back in the late first round if I can, mostly because I like the running backs that wrap back around to me in the second round better. As Marvin Harrison goes, like there's a chance we get a Jahmyr Gibbs slide if Fanstradamus and E Harris 55 both go wide receivers. There's a chance we get a good Jahmyr Gibbs slide, and I'm okay splitting Garrett Wilson, Jahmyr Gibbs. But if Jahmyr Gibbs goes, like I'm okay with any of Drake London, Debo, Jalen Waddle in that range. Has Kyren Williams shot up an ADP yet? He hasn't. He's still like late second round, so he hasn't quite shot up that high yet. As we get an Nico Collins auto draft, fascinating. That's kind of my thought. I would only split the late first round in Underdog. I wouldn't go 2 running backs. Where is and there goes Jalen Waddle. We might get it. Well, look at this. We'll get a Puka Nacua or Jahmyr Gibbs slide here. Look at that. There's that Jahmyr Gibbs slide. There it is. There it is, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna take Jahmyr Gibbs here. We're gonna lock down a little bit of a hero running back strategy with Jahmyr Gibbs. I love that for us. Absolutely love that for us. We got a long time until our next pick, so I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna fly through some of these questions here. There's a question in here specifically about a scenario about doing there we go. Am I doing a second round running back strat? Yes. Just like we did here. I think second round running backs are going to be phenomenal this year. In your redraft leagues, you're not going to see this many wide receivers here. You're going to see a Jonathan Taylor around, pick 16. You're going to see, Kyren Williams in this range. You're going to see Travis Etienne, Devon Achane as he goes middle of the second round, right? You're going to see a lot more of those running backs go in the second round. I think if you draft a guy like a Justin Jefferson, an Amon-Ra, a Tyreek Hill, I think drafting one of those guys and one of those running backs in the second round is optimal. I love Kyren Williams in the second round. On Underdog, he's going late second round, early third round. So you're getting some insane value on Kyren Williams, in my opinion, there. So I think the second round running backs are substantially better than the wide receivers going in that range. Like Drake London, Chris Olave, I would rather have a Jonathan Taylor, Devon Achane, a Kyren Williams ahead of those guys. So I think it's totally possible you do a second round wide receiver strat. Let's see here. There was another good question here that I wanted to address. I saw where is it? There it is, from Gabe. Who do you find yourself reaching on the most ADP wise? This is actually a phenomenal question. I find myself reaching in like the third round. There's 2 guys. I'll answer this 2 ways. I find myself reaching 3 guys, really. I find myself reaching for Kyren Williams. If I am drafting in the late second round or the late first round in my redraft leagues, Kyren Williams typically goes like middle of the second round. I'm willing to reach a few picks and take him early second round. Jalen Waddle's another one. His ADP right now is like the 311. I'm willing to reach down and grab him 5, 6, 7 picks ahead of ADP right now. I think he has a big bounce back season. What went wrong for Jalen Waddle is that he couldn't stay healthy last year. He played less than 2/3 of the snaps in 6 games last year. So that hurt you automatically. And this is still a substantially good offense, and his contingent upside without Tyreek Hill is just massive. So I'm still a big Jalen Waddle guy, and then Kyler Murray in the 7th round, because the 7th round is where the quarterback dip really starts to happen. It's like Kyler Murray, Dak Prescott, and Jordan Love all go within like 8 picks of each other, and it's all in the 7th round. So if you're in the early 7th round, none of those 3 quarterbacks are making it back to you in the late 8th round. So I am reaching on Kyler constantly to make sure I locked on my quarterback, because he's my favorite out of those 3. So we're gonna be back on the clock here. See, so what's crazy about underdog drafts right now, right, is like through basically almost 3 rounds, there are essentially, going to be 25 wide receivers off the board already. And I think we do have to go wide receiver here. My preference is going to be Tank Dell over Stephon Diggs if we can get a Tank Dell click here. I would prefer him as our wide receiver too. We'll probably have to come back, and as there goes Stephon Diggs. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to click Tank Dell here. He's my favorite wide receiver in this range. I think he has the most upside in this range. And then what I'm probably going to do is click. If he makes it back, I'll probably take Zay Flowers next, mostly because an underdog, Best Ball Mania 5 is giving out $1.5 million to first place this year. And all that money is won in week 17. So what I want to do is I want to be able to correlate week 17 matchups. So, well, there goes Zay Flowers. So I shouldn't have opened my big mouth. Maybe we get a Michael Pittman Jr. here. I'm okay reaching out for T. I'm okay with really either wide receiver, Michael Pittman or T. Higgins. This is tough. Because I'm a fan of T. Higgins. He's been crushing training camp, according to reports. Michael Pittman Jr., you're without Josh Downs. You're down a wide receiver there. Jeff, this is a half PPR draft. I got to go ahead and make a decision. I'm going to go ahead and take T. Higgins, mostly because I don't know if I'm going to be able to stack Anthony Richardson with a Michael Pittman. I like my options with Tank Dell and T. Higgins better with CJ Stroud and Joe Burrow based on their current ADP. So yeah, no, not a PPR. This is a half PPR draft over on Underdog. This is a great question here in rookie super flex. Caleb or Jaden Daniels? I think I'm going to lean Caleb. I've been cooling off on Jaden Daniels a little bit. I love his rushing upside. I think he could be Anthony Richardson-esque, but I don't want to be premature. I think we've steamed Jaden Daniels in redraft. We have his ADP really hasn't changed. In best ball, we have steamed up his ADP quite a bit. Like he is going in the wide in the quarterback 11 range. In a rookie super flex, I think Caleb is probably going to have the more well-rounded, higher longevity career. So I would lean Caleb over Jaden, but I love both. I absolutely love both. This is a good question from Gabe as well. How early are you willing to go for elite tight ends and quarterbacks? Is it solely dependent on your previous picks? Yeah, this is a great one. I am willing to do whatever I can to get an elite tight end as holy crap. Trey McBride at the 4-2, Travis Kelce at the 4-5. That's a value. Look, I'm willing to spend 4th round capital to get one of those elite tight ends this year. And my favorite one to draft is whoever is last on the board. I will take Trey McBride in the middle of the 4th round. I am willing to get that advantage. I am very confident in this Arizona Cardinals offense, and I will. I'll get to this question in a moment from Dustin, but I am so willing to draft Trey McBride because I think this Arizona Cardinals offense is actually going to be solid this year. I think they'll be out of enough games where Kyler's going to have to throw the ball around the yard. He's going to be rushing quite a bit. And Trey McBride is still going to be plenty involved. Like, I don't think we can just expect Marvin Harrison Jr. to be an immediate contributor as soon as he steps on the field. So I'm a big fan of grabbing Trey McBride. He's going to be consistent for Kyler Murray. And I think, based on youth, I think he might actually have the most upside out of, him, Mark Andrews, and Dalton Kincaid. Kyler in redraft currently goes round 7, and his ADP is creeping up. You used to be able to get him like tail end of the 7th, early 8th. Kyler's now going like early to mid 7th. So his ADP is rising very quickly. I think now that more people are starting to mock draft and they're seeing where Kyler is actually going and they're recognizing that same upside, they're just starting to steam up his ADP like crazy. So um, he goes round 7, and I think we're going to see it kind of plateau there. It kind of the like late 6th, early 7th, I think is where we're going to finally hit our breaking point. But I absolutely love him at that price tag. I absolutely love him in that range. This is a interesting spot to be in here. I mean, we could reach down a little bit for CJ Stroud to stack with a Tank Dell. I don't really want to force that though. It's Kyler Murray's quarterback 7. Like, I think we can wait and still take a Joe Burrow later. So what I want to do is I want to finish building out some depth here. And I think what I want to do is I'm for sure going to want to go a wide receiver here, which is perfect. I love Calvin Ridley at this price tag, especially with D-Hop, still struggling with the knee injury. We're talking about a 32-year-old wide receiver who, is missing the most important time of training camp. And if Brian Callahan is truly going to sling the rock around the yard, I am all in on Calvin Ridley. So this is great. Big fan of this wide receiver start of Garrett Wilson, Tank Dell, T. Higgins, Calvin Ridley. Anchor it down with a Jahmyr Gibbs. And I think what I want to do next is I might take some Joe Mixon. I'm slightly interested in George Kittle here. I like his upside. If Brandon Ayuk gets traded, I mean, sky's the limit for George Kittle. You're going to see his ADP like skyrocket. He's going to be going much closer to those top 5 tight ends. So I would rather scoop Kittle at tight end 7 right now while I can. And if CMC is still dealing with a calf injury, I'm not super concerned about that. He'll be fine for week 1, but Kittle's another guy that I am super interested in. And if we're talking, elite tight ends, where Gabe's question there? If we're talking elite tight ends, like all Brandon Ayuk has to do is be traded, and all of a sudden, Kittle is in that conversation then of being one of those top 5, top 6 tight ends. So I'd scoop him up at his value all day, every day. And then that way I don't really have to worry about tight end until later. Then I don't have to worry about taking multiple tight ends and trying to piece it together. Especially with going this anchor running back strategy here with Jahmyr Gibbs and having 4 wide receivers already. Just kind of my thought process there. And I think I've talked myself into George Kittle, unless if E. Harris snipes us here, in which case I'm ready to go Joe Mixon. Oh, that was holy smokes. It's a little bit of a reach down the board for Kyler Murray. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to take George Kittle here. Get a little bit of a correlation week 17 with Detroit as well. I love that. We get an option to stack with Brock Purdy. There's a lot that can go right with that pick. So I'm a big fan of George Kittle in the early 6th there. Again, the contingent upside there is astronomical. And in best ball, when the best high scoring players hit your lineup, those are the guys you want in there. Let's see here. We got a few more questions. Yeah, this is a good one here from Churchill 5. Who would you take out of JJ, Jamar Chase, Amon-Ra, St. Brown? And if I take one of them, do you like Gibbs or Wilson? Yeah, I prefer JJ out of this bunch. Jordan Addison just went down today with. I've heard multiple reports, and like I said, I've been on the run all day. I've literally been up since 6 a.m. I've been editing a short that I'm going to post tonight. I did that. I had meetings from 9 to basically 2:30 p.m. I went to the gym at 4, got back, had a meeting afterwards, was late for this, right? Like, I haven't been keeping close tabs, but Jordan Addison went down with an injury today. You're going to miss TJ Hawkinson for some time. And Sam Darnold looked fairly good in preseason. Like, let's just be honest with ourselves. So I'm have full confidence in KOC, and I'm taking JJ ahead of those two. I would prefer to take Jahmyr Gibbs with the Justin Jefferson. If you can somehow pull that off, I don't know what league you're in, but if you can pull off a JJ Gibbs, that's an absolute dream. Excuse me. This is an interesting one here. 10-team PPR is CMC, Adams, Josh Allen. Good. Yeah, I'm perfectly fine with that start. I might prefer to go 2 wide receivers instead of taking a Josh Allen there. And taking, like an Anthony Richardson later. Again, as much as I love Kyler Murray, I'm just telling everybody to draft Kyler Murray this year, but I understand not not everybody wants to draft Kyler Murray. Um, I'm personally okay with that. Again, I'm more subject to stack 2 wide receivers at the start with CMC just to make sure I lock down that position. But you also literally can't go wrong with taking Josh Allen. Like, I'm never going to tell you that's a bad pick. So I'm okay with that. I personally prefer Adams and another wide receiver, but you could totally do Josh Allen and be perfectly okay as well. Um, from Nathan here, do you think I'm overpaying by giving up Debo, Brandon Ayuk, and Derwin James for Tyreek Hill? Yes and no. I understand why somebody would want Debo and Ayuk for Tyreek Hill. Plus, if you're in a IDP league, um, you're throwing in a Derwin James as well. I would rather do Debo and a lesser player than Brandon Ayuk to go get Tyreek Hill if you're throwing in Derwin James with that. That's just me. I would see if you could throw in a lesser wide receiver than Brandon Ayuk. It'll probably take Debo to get Tyreek Hill, but if you're also throwing in that defensive player, I would rather give up a lesser player than Ayuk. All right, so we're about to be on the clock here. CJ Stroud is still on the board. 12 picks past ADP at this point. I'm a big fan of taking him here if we want to stack him up with a Tank Dell. I'm very okay with that. As David Montgomery goes off the board, and there goes CJ Stroud. So we will not be taking CJ Stroud here. With 4 wide receivers, I think we're going to go running back here. My exposure to Aaron Jones is pretty low. I prefer Jaylen Warren. For exposure's sake, in Underdog, I am going to take Aaron Jones here, even though I'm not the biggest Aaron Jones advocate in the world. But if you're going to be missing Jordan Addison now, along with TJ Hawkinson, that's all the more receiving opportunity for Aaron Jones. So I'm going to go ahead and lock that in. What we'll probably do with our next pick is we will probably reach down and grab Joe Burrow as our quarterback. Mostly because we really can't wait much longer with, getting sniped on CJ Stroud. Does he have any Texans? Oh no, he has Stephon Diggs. Yeah, so that made a lot of sense there, especially when Stroud was 12 picks, a full round past ADP at that point. So we're probably gonna go ahead and take Joe Burrow next. I'll go ahead and I'll toss him in the queue here, mostly because I'm not tempted to reach down on a Zamir White, on a Raheem Mostert. Not a huge fan of any of these wide receivers here as well to add to our wide receiver room. So we'll go ahead and we'll click Joe Burrow. We'll lock in our quarterback here. And I feel good about that. Stack him with T. Higgins. Pick up some Denver players later if we want to add a little bit of a late season correlation there. So I'm good with that. We'll get back to a few questions here. And again, I'm talking a lot of best ball strategy right now because I'm doing a draft on Underdog. Not all of this will apply to your home leagues, because a lot of your home leagues, again, are going to be on Yahoo, they're going to be on ESPN, they're going to be on NFL, CBS, whatever it may be. Just recognizing that and naming that for you all now. So I'm like chatting best ball strategy, but then I'm also coming back to all your questions as well. Just because I think there is some value in doing Underdog drafts, just to kind of understand where people who are investing real money into these contests are drafting players, but we also recognize the ADP isn't perfectly transferable. I did want to answer this one from Dino Edits. Is Marvin Harrison Jr. going to be a top 15 wide receiver this year, or should I stay away? Yeah, you should not stay away from Marvin Harrison Jr. He's going to be a top 15 wide receiver this year. What you have to be aware of is that his season is going to start slow. His season, he's probably not going to get off to a blazing hot start, like a Drake London could, like a Garrett Wilson, like a potentially Puka Nacua if he's healthy. He's not going to get off to this blazing hot start. What you can count on, though, is that after the Arizona Cardinals bye week, the bump that he's going to get in production is going to be notable. So if you don't get Marvin Harrison Jr., but someone in your league has him and Marvin Harrison, they're like, wow, man, dude, I took Marvin Harrison in the early second round, and he's not living up to ADP. I'm kind of disappointed. I'm kind of frustrated. After that bye week, while the Arizona Cardinals are on their bye week, I am pouncing to get Marvin Harrison Jr. at that point. He is one where if you draft him, you have to be patient, because after the bye week, it's only up. He's going to get a bump. I promise you. But if you don't draft him and you see he's underperforming the first part of the season and your league mates are panicking on it, that's the time to pounce. because he's going to be much, much better in the second half than he will be in the first half, most likely. This is a fascinating one. Calvin Ridley, Debo, and Derwin James for Tyreek. This one I'm more okay with because as much as I think Calvin Ridley has a good amount of upside this year in Brian Callahan's offense with Will Levis slinging the thing around the yard, Calvin Ridley could also just have the floor fall out from underneath him like last year. And you're going to have to pay up to get Tyreek Hill. Like you're paying up for a top 3 fantasy wide receiver. And those just don't grow on trees, right? So if you're really sold on getting Tyreek Hill, I think it probably will take a trade like that. Now, of course, that stinks if Brandon Ayuk gets traded and, we're looking at Deebo Samuel as a top 10 option. That'll sting a little bit. But at the end of the day, you know what you're getting from Tyreek Hill, and what you're getting from Tyreek Hill is almost a guaranteed 17 plus fantasy points almost every single week. So I like that trade better than giving up a Brandon Ayuk because I think Brandon Ayuk has more upside than Calvin Ridley. But that one I'm much more of a fan of than giving up both Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk. I see a few more questions rolling in here. I'm going to go ahead and take a look at the board because we're going to be on the clock here in a few picks. Yes, this is perfect. This is exactly how I was hoping the board would look because there are a handful of running backs all going in this range. I'm going to be happy with taking Zach Moss or Brian Robinson Jr. here. This is perfect. We're going to go ahead. We're going to click Brian Robinson Jr. We need a third running back here. We already have our tight end. We already have 2 running backs. Brian Robinson Jr. as a running back 3 is absolutely wonderful. And what I'm hoping is that we could take a Rashid Shaheed, a Tyler Lockett, or even a Dontavian Wicks here with one of our next picks to add to our wide receiver room as our wide receiver 5. This is turning out to be a wonderful draft. This board is actually falling to us very nicely with the 10th pick here, which, again, I typically dread drafting from the 10th pick. But with how this board is falling, I am very, very pleased with how this is shaking out. And frankly, you know what? I'm gonna queue up Dontavian Wicks. Where did Romeo Doubs go? Is Romeo Doubs further down the board? Or am I crazy? Dobbs was taken 100th overall. So I scrolled right past him then. It was ADP. He was taken by E-Lock a while ago then. Where did he go? Oh, he went, holy crap. He went 2 full rounds ahead of ADP. Holy smokes. Okay. All right. I'd like you do you, call your shot, I guess, but like, holy smokes. It's a bit of a reach there. I want the week 17 correlation with, look at that, and falls to us anyways. He's kind of the last wide receiver I like in this range, regardless. So I'm good with Dontavian Wicks click there in the 10th round. Purely an upside click, but correlate that with Minnesota in week 17 as well. So we got a lot of late season correlation here that could pan out for us in this contest. Here we go. This is great. Are there guys that usually go undrafted that you're willing to take shots on? So this is wonderful. And I'm about to throw out a bunch of disgusting names because typically in your home leagues, you're looking at like 12, 13, 14, sometimes 15 round drafts. And a lot of these guys that are going undrafted, I think just have like a ton of potential upside this year. So starting with like a tight end, Kobe Parkinson of the Rams. I absolutely love him this year. I think this Rams offense is going to be a top 5 unit in the league this year with Matthew Stafford at the helm. If they get Puka Nacua back healthy, Cooper Kupp is back full strength. Demarcus Robinson is another player I really like as well who goes undrafted. I would absolutely be taking shots on him if you got like a 15 round draft and you're like, I don't know, I just need another wide receiver with upside. Demarcus Robinson is a guy who's going to be on the field in 3 wide receiver sets for the Rams. He earned that role last year. So Kobe Parkinson and Demarcus Robinson are 2 on the Rams that I really like. If you're looking at like a 12 round league, a guy like Ty Chandler is a guy I'm looking at as well. Aaron Jones doesn't exactly have the cleanest record of staying healthy for an entire season. So I am all for Ty Chandler as well. I think Ty Chandler is going to get, probably 3-4 starts throughout the year, and you're going to be considering him a top 20 running back as well. And, they're talking about giving Aaron Jones 15 to 18 touches per game. Dan Graziano of ESPN also said, they're looking to probably give it, 15 to 18 touches per game to Aaron Jones, which also frees up anywhere from 5 to 8 touches for Ty Chandler then. More than 5 to 8, probably closer to 8 to 10 touches for Ty Chandler every single week. So Ty Chandler's another guy I really like to take shots on as well in the later rounds. And in terms of wide receivers, or quarterbacks, the late round quarterbacks are so tough. Jared Goff doesn't go undrafted. I'm a big Jared Goff fan this year. 14 to 17 games indoors. All quarterbacks play substantially better indoors, but it is like night and day for Jared Goff playing indoors versus outdoors. So he's another one I like in the later rounds this year. C-Dog mentions, when's it best to take a second quarterback? Typically, I don't in redraft leagues. I just kind of I draft my one. I lock him in unless if it's like unless if I'm stuck taking like a Caleb Williams or a Brock Purdy or something, I would draft 2 then. But if I have basically anybody Jordan Love or better, I'm just rolling with them. And then once around bye, I'll go ahead and I'll pick the waiver wire for the best option available. This is also a nice spot here. I'm a big fan of the running backs in this range too. I can be happy with Gus. I could be happy with Zeke. If we already have Brian Robinson, so I'm not too interested in Eckler here. But we'll go ahead and we'll add another running back to our running back room as Nick Chubb goes off the board. What do we have here? I'm tempted to go Gus Edwards here over Zeke. Kamani Vidal hype hasn't been great as of recent. It seems like Gus is going to be the early down guy for sure. Probably the guy around the goal line. So I'll go ahead and I'll take Gus as our running back 4. And really, I'm only looking to take one more, and I'm probably going to shut this thing down. And Gus is, 10 picks past ADP, so I think that's a fine value to take there. My hope is that we get a Gabe Davis slide if we're shooting for an upside pick. Otherwise, I will probably roll with a Jahan Dotson. Those are kind of my leanings there at this point in the draft. We'll see how the board falls to us. I just like Gabe Davis because if you watch the Jaguars in their first preseason game, 2 wide receiver sets, it was Gabe Davis and Brian Thomas Jr. who are out on the field. But I think is notable. If they're going to keep Christian Kirk not exclusively, but if they're going to keep Christian Kirk in the slot, move him outside every once in a while. But noting that Gabe Davis was out there in 2 wide receiver sets, I think is important. And when we're playing best ball, when it's just your best players automatically hit your lineup, it doesn't matter. Oh, there goes Gabe Davis. I shouldn't have talked so much. But in best ball, when it's simply the guys who score the highest on the week are the ones you start. They're automatically started for you. Like Gabe Davis is a guy who can give you 20 points on any week. He might give you 0 the week after, but when you're drafting him as your wide receiver 6, you're not asking much out of the guy. Oh, and there goes Jahan Dotson. Well, what the heck? This is where I'm tempted to take a Ty Chandler and shut it down at running back. Handcuff him with Aaron Jones. I'm not a Darnell Mooney or a Josh Downs guy who's dealing with the ankle injury. I'm going to go ahead and big brain it. We're going to take Ty Chandler. We're going to handcuff Aaron Jones. I'm not going to draft another running back. This is going to be our running back room. And I feel relatively good about it. So as much as I wanted to go anchor running back, the board just kind of ended up shaking out that way. So we'll hammer wide receivers. We'll have to grab another quarterback and a tight end, but there's a lot of different guys we could take in a lot of different spots here. I'm kind of eyeing an Aaron Rodgers to stack with a Garrett Wilson. We can pick up a Will Levis later for Tennessee if we need to. Those are kind of the guys we're looking at right now. If we need to really backdoor a Bo Nix stack with a Denver player, we can do that. Handful of options here. We've given ourselves a lot of options here. So we're gonna come back to the questions here. Yeah, James Conner. Heck yes, James Conner is phenomenal. I'm a big James Conner fan this year. I love where he's going in drafts. I mean, this is a guy you can draft, running back 22 right now, who last season was averaging 24 fantasy points per game in the final 4 weeks. I mean, the dude was insanely good, and he's going to be involved in the receiving game. he's going to get the bulk of the rush attempts. The Trey Benson hype out of camp thus far has not been that good. So yeah, I like James Conner. That does come from a Jack Perkins. Your opinion on Devin Singletary and James Conner? I'm a big James Conner fan. Devin Singletary, look, as much as I feel for Tyrone Tracy, I mean, the path just got that much more clear for Devin Singletary. It'll be him and Eric Gray, and they'll probably bring in another running back. My guess is, if a Samaje Perine gets cut, I think he's probably a candidate to be picked up by the Giants at this point. But the path only got clearer for him with Tyrone Tracy out of the picture now. Again, I feel for Tyrone Tracy. It's absolutely terrible what happened, but the path only got clear. It's not a great offense. You don't have to spend the capital on him though. He's going as a running back 32 right now, right? Like you're not spending much to get him. So yeah, I'm fine with both. I obviously prefer James Conner. I'm a big James Conner fan here. I think both are fine options. Yeah, Gabe, this is a great question. So I mentioned this a little bit earlier. I'm flip-flopping between chatting best ball strategy and a lot of the redraft questions that are coming in right now, right? Week 17 correlation is very, very much strictly a best ball contest thing. So when I'm drafting on Underdog, right, this contest that I'm in right now, I'm drafting Best Ball Mania 5, costs $25 to enter. They have a bunch of lower stakes contests as well, $3, $4, $5 entries if you want to try those out too before you commit to something like Best Ball Mania. But the money is won in week 17. You have to draft a team that advances to week 15, 16, 17, but when all the money is on the line is in week 17. So what you want is games that are going to pop off in week 17. So for instance, like the Detroit Lions and San Francisco 49ers play each other in week 17. That game has incredible potential to absolutely explode and score a ton of points. Jahmyr Gibbs and George Kittle could be massive scorers in those weeks. When you look at like Houston and Baltimore, that's another one as Ricky Pearsall goes off the board. That stinks. I was really hoping to snag Ricky Pearsall there. We're going to go ahead. We'll take the value on Josh Downs. He's about a full round after ADP. Once he's back from an ankle injury, he's going to be a stable and reliable piece there. I know it was a high ankle sprain, not great, but again, with the value we can get him at there, I will take him there and what I think will be a good Colts offense this year. But all the money is won in week 17. So you want correlations, you want stacks, you want game stacks with players who could potentially go off in those matchups, right? So again, Minnesota and Green Bay playing week 17. I think that could be a potentially high scoring game. I want pieces of that game. I want Aaron Jones. I want, again, if Aaron Jones is out, I want Ty Chandler then. Dontavian Wicks. He's not Christian Watson. He's not Romeo Doubs, not Jayden Reed, not Josh Jacobs, right? But it's a piece of that game that could just go bonkers, that could put up, more than 50 total points in that week. I'm going to pray we don't get sniped on Aaron Rodgers here. Good, because I want to stack Aaron Rodgers up with Garrett Wilson. Oh, crap. Do they both have week 12? Crap, they both have week 12 buys. Oh, bye, bros. Bye, bros hate me. Oh, that's brutal. Rookie mistake. I'll have to take a third quarterback, which is fine. Oh, that's brutal, man. I was really excited to get that Garrett Wilson, Aaron Rodgers stack. That's okay. But that week 17 correlation, again, the money is all won in week 17. So I want pieces of games that are going to explode. That's kind of my logic around week 17 correlation. It's not a redraft concept because in redraft, you're not concerned about winning a total prize pot of like $1.5 million. But in best ball, when you're competing against literally thousands of other teams, like we're talking like, 250,000 entries into this contest, you got to have some sort of edge, and having week 17 game stacks is a way to get that edge. So that's kind of the heart behind week 17 correlation there. I rambled on about that a little bit, but for those who are like new to best ball, it's a new concept. It's totally foreign. But once you get the hang of it, once you kind of figure out like, oh, I can draft these players in these ranges and still get an edge in my contests, it starts to come together really, really nicely. So Jared Goff. I wish Jared Goff was still on the board. I totally would have taken him with Jahmyr Gibbs, but let's see here. My favorite spot to draft this year from Jack Perkins. I love having basically any of picks 3 through 7. Those are my favorite spots this year. 3 through 7 is where I love to draft. I'm guaranteed one of the high-end players. I'm guaranteed, a JJ, a Jamar Chase, an Amon-Ra, a Breece Hall, a Bijan. I'm guaranteed one of those guys. But I'm also not so close to the 2-3 turn where I can still get some pretty solid values on running backs, like a Kyron Williams, like a Travis Etienne, like a Devon Achane. I would much rather go a wide receiver running back start than wait until the turn and then have like a Christian McCaffrey. As much as I love Tyreek Hill and CeeDee Lamb, like the options at the 2-3 turn just don't feel as great in terms of running back. You're going to have to kick the can on that. Oh, this is tempting. That do I just take Will Levis as the third quarterback here to take with Calvin Ridley, and we'll figure out tight end and wide receiver. I think that's what we're going to do. 16, 17, 18. Yeah, we'll take two more wide receivers and a tight end then. We'll do that if we don't get sniped on Levis. That's good with me. What we'll probably do is we'll end up taking a wow, Yoshivas is already going at wide receiver 82. Jeez Louise. Is it bad? I kind of want to take some Quentin Johnston here. Is that bad, chat? I kind of want to take some Quentin Johnston. I mean, reports out of camp have been great. Don't get me wrong. But man, when you're drafting Yoshivas ahead of Quentin Johnston, I'm sorry. Look at the guys in this range. Like none of these guys. Go ahead. I'll take some Quentin Johnston. I haven't clicked his name like at all this offseason, so that might be my first Quentin Johnston share actually. Go ahead. We'll put the board back on here for the final few rounds. But yeah, I prefer drafting, anywhere between picks 3 and 7 where I can start wide receiver, running back. That's kind of my preference. That's my preference this year. My favorite wide receiver from Green Bay is Christian Watson. Where is the other one? Gabe here asked about Christian Watson as well. Do I think he could be a more consistent wide receiver? Yeah, I'm putting some weight behind it. I'm not all in on saying it's 100% resolved. I have 100% confidence in Christian Watson. But we have to remind ourselves last year we were drafting this guy as the wide receiver 26. And now the only reason why we're drafting him as the wide receiver 46 is because of his injury history. And now he's figuring it out. Like if he didn't have this hamstring injury, but Jayden Reed was still good last year, we would be drafting Christian Watson where Jayden Reed is, and we'd be drafting Jayden Reed where Christian Watson is. That's kind of all there is to it. So I'm a big fan of Christian Watson. I think he's the better player than Jayden Reed. I think he has more upside than Jayden Reed. He's on the field more than Jayden Reed when they share the field. He scores more touchdowns than Jayden Reed. Like, as much as I like Jayden Reed, I think he's a nice little player. Christian Watson is just going to be the more effective fantasy wide receiver when we're looking for fantasy points. And when Romeo Dobbs, Jayden Reed, Dontavian Wicks, when all those guys are out on the field, Jayden Reed's the third guy. He's the one who's coming off the field most. Because when they're running 2 wide receiver sets, it's Romeo Dobbs and Christian Watson out there. So yeah, for me, I'm putting some weight into that injury resolution for Christian Watson. Every reputable sports medicine analyst that I follow has said typically you don't want the muscle mass difference to be more than 10%. And Christian Watson was all the way up at 20%. He's cut that down to below 10% now. So I'm willing to put some weight behind it. And for the value that I can get him at wide receiver 46, I'm like 100%. I might even say Romeo Dobbs I prefer to Jayden Reed this year. I mean, you're drafting Jayden Reed as like the wide receiver 30, 32 right now, when you can get Watson at wide receiver 46 and Dobbs at wide receiver 50, 51, 52. Like that's just no brainer value to me when the two guys who are playing more snaps than Jaden Reed have more touchdown upside than Jaden Reed. Christian Watson, who has more big play upside than Jaden Reed. It's just a no brainer for me that I'd just rather take a shot on one of those two than take what is supposed to be a safety valve, quote unquote, in Jaden Reed, and scored significantly less fantasy points when all three were on the field. How do I feel about Zamir White? I was originally in. I think it's super easy to look at his 4-game sample at the end of the season, where he's getting 20 rush attempts a game, and say, well, look, Alexander Madison and Dylan Laube are there. It's going to be great. I just don't think this Raiders offense is going to be that good. And frankly, I think this is going to be more of a rotating backfield than we may want. I think we might see Alexander Madison filter in more. Holy crap. I am sorry. Jalen Hyatt and Jordan Whittington are now going 17th round. Just because of camp buzz? This is a crazy time of the year, y'all, where you can take advantage of people just taking shots on these guys. No, you're 17th, 18th round pick. Like, I'm not going to overreact. Like, get your guys, right? Go ahead and just draft the guys that you want. But man, just camp buzz does crazy things to a person. But yeah, my preference is Christian Watson out of that wide receiver room, and Zamir White. I'm cooling off on him. I think it's just going to be a rotating backfield more than we're going to want to admit. I'm doing it. We need wide receivers. Sorry, I have to play.
Bring your popcorn. I make people in wheelchairs stand up.
Javon Baker. My toxic trade is drafting so much Javon Baker this year. I'm legit at, I think I have like 28% Javon Baker drafted in all my underdog drafts this year. That's my toxic trade, is I can't stop drafting Javon Baker in the 17th, 18th round of these best ball drafts. Okay, we need another tight end too. We've kind of kicked the can on tight end a pretty long ways at this point, and Colby Parkinson's off the board. He's typically my go-to. A little Greg D. He's getting some good camp buzz. Pair that up with Cincinnati, week 17. I'm a fan of that. Doesn't line up with George Kittle's bye, week 9, week 14. I'm good with that. We're gonna go Greg Dulcich here for our last pick, our second tight end. And then I'll answer a few more of these questions then, but then I am going to have to hop off here close to the top of the hour. I'll go ahead and I'll throw the board up here. We'll recap the team. I'll answer a few more questions and we'll sign off here. Zamir White, yeah, I just think this is going to be a rotating backfield. Sorry, I'll come back and wrap up my thoughts on this. I think it's going to be more of a rotating backfield than we like. I think Zamir White is going to be the lead guy. I'm okay drafting him at his current price tag, especially in redraft leagues, where he's going I believe he's going 7th, 8th round. I'm okay with that. You're not paying much, but I also don't think he has this like league winning upside that a lot of people might want to try and force onto him. I just don't think this Raiders offense is good enough. And I think Alexander Madison and Dylan Laube are just going to get enough touches to make him annoying. How do I feel about Jalen Hurts and the Eagles winning the Super Bowl this year? I will say I am a big fan of the Eagles this year. I think anything they put out on the field will be better than whatever the heck Brandon Johnson was running last year with this team. And it was a high school level offense that this team was running. There was nothing easy that came with the offense. It was a disaster. It was a mess. I like, you can make fun of Kellen Moore all you want. He runs high scoring offenses. He runs high efficiency offenses. He runs high power passing offenses. So I'm a big fan of Jalen Hurts and the Eagles having a bounce back season. I really, really am. So I love all of them in drafts this year. I love drafting AJ Brown. I love Jalen Hurts at his value. I'm okay drafting Devonta Smith. I think Dallas Goedert at tight end 12 could sneaky be a decent little value as well. Go ahead and we'll recap this team quick. But yeah, no, I think the Eagles could be sneaky contenders again this year. So here we go. We'll recap the team. I'll answer a few more questions. Then I am going to have to sign off here, y'all. So at quarterback, Joe Burrow, Aaron Rodgers, Will Levis. We really didn't need to take Will Levis, but I didn't want to have a quarterback not playing in week 12. So we took Will Levis again, going after ADP. We could kind of afford to, because we also have Calvin Ridley down here who he stacks up with. And I think anytime you can stack your quarterbacks in best ball, it is always a good strategy. The science shows you are more likely to score more points when your quarterbacks and wide receivers are correlated. Again, not mandatory in redraft whatsoever, but in best ball, it is one of the best strategies that you can do is stacking up your quarterback, your wide receivers, and especially when you can get game stacks with them as well. So at running back, when Jahmyr Gibbs, Aaron Jones, Brian Robinson Jr., Gus Edwards, Ty Chandler. I like that for a running back room. I like the anchor running back in Jahmyr Gibbs. Again, if Jordan Addison is going to miss time and TJ Hawkinson is already slated to miss time, Aaron Jones is going to catch passes. He's going to have to catch passes. Brian Robinson Jr., he's just a great value right now. He's going to be consistent, the goal line back for this Washington Commanders offense. And Gus Edwards appears to be the lead runner in LA right now for the Chargers. Kamani Vidal, unfortunately, hype has kind of gone the wrong direction for him. So I love Gus Edwards and Ty Chandler as the handcuff to Aaron Jones. Big fan of that pick. Wide receiver, Garrett Wilson, Tank Dell, T. Higgins, Calvin Ridley. Love that four. Love that four for a start. And then you get Dontavian Wicks, Josh Downs as some hopefully consistent breakout pieces this year. Quentin Johnson and Javon Baker. Quentin Johnson is the interesting one. The team still has high hopes for him. Camp reports are just all over the place. And Javon Baker has been showing out in Patriots camp. I think he's going to be like sneaky undervalued this year. I'm not saying you should go out and draft him in your home leagues, but if your home league is in a 16 round draft and you're just looking for another wide receiver with upside, like Javon Baker could be your guy. Like let's attack the ambiguity of the Patriots wide receiver room and take a shot on a Javon Baker if Jalen Polk is already off the board. Then at tight end, George Kittle, Greg Dulcich. Again, the contingent upside on George Kittle is just massive if Brandon Ayuk gets traded. If he doesn't, you still get a guy who's been a top 5 tight end each of the last 3 years. So I'm personally a fan of that team. I'll go ahead and I'll answer a few more questions here. Who should I take at the 111 and the 202? So yeah, I personally, if you could swing it like I did in this draft where you get a Garrett Wilson and Jahmyr Gibbs, that's my favorite. I'm also okay if you do like Garrett Wilson and a Jonathan Taylor, a Garrett Wilson and a Kyren Williams. I'm perfectly okay with any of those as well. I think my favorite is a Garrett Wilson and Kyren Williams if you can get that. I think Jonathan Taylor is probably going to end up sneaking into the first round this year. But if you have a chance of taking Garrett Wilson, I think he has to be your pick at 111 because the injury with Puka Nacua is concerning. And if you draft a running back in that first round, like the Garrett Wilson and Puka Nacua are going to be gone by your next pick. Those wide receivers in the second round, are dicey to say the least. So if you can get Garrett Wilson at 111, I'm doing that. And then I'm taking a running back then, whether it's Jonathan Taylor, Kyren Williams, Saquon. That's kind of my preference there. Let me reorder. Kyren, Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley. Those would be my preferred 3 in that order to pair with a Garrett Wilson. And sleeper, JSN, Christian Watson going back to back. Who'd you take in a vacuum? Yeah, in a vacuum is a great question. I find myself taking JSN more times than not. Mostly because I think they both have quite a bit of upside. I love Seattle's offense this year. I think Ryan Grubb is going to be so good for Geno Smith, DK Metcalf, and all these Seattle wide receivers. And there's just I know I've mentioned I'm willing to put some weight behind the Christian Watson injury stuff, but what if it isn't fixed? I'm not going to be ignorant and just say it's totally fixed. What if it isn't? What if Christian Watson still struggles this year and JSN is actually the breakout guy you want? Less risk with JSN, more likely to take a second-year leap than Christian Watson a third-year leap. So in a vacuum, I'm taking JSN ahead of Christian Watson, but I'm not upset if I get sniped on either. If it's all right, I'm up in one pick and JSN and Christian Watson are my 2 options. Whoever the manager in front of me takes makes my decision for me. That's kind of how I'm looking at it in a vacuum then. Everyone liked to stream. Hey, Avery, appreciate you, my man. Yeah, if you're not subscribed over here on YouTube, make sure you do that. We had all of our podcast content coming out over here Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday throughout the entire season. We're going Tuesday through Thursday for the rest of preseason. Then during the regular season, we are doing weekly shows. We're going to have a little bit of panic or patience. We're going to have some trade targets. We're going to have some starts and sits in every matchup as well. Not going to miss out on that content. So make sure you like the stream, turn on notifications as well, so you know when we're going live, when you know when our newest content is out, and you can make sure to catch all of our most recent content. Yeah, appreciate that, Avery. Thanks, Avery. Thanks for singling that out, man. Appreciate it. Last question I'll kind of answer here. Who are some of the biggest busts this year? I'm tempted to call anybody a bust right out of the gate. So what I'll say is, who are some of my least favorite ADP values right now? I think Stephon Diggs is a major candidate. What I'm worried about is, sure, he was out on the field in 2 wide receiver sets for the Texans when they played all of 6 snaps together. I'm not going to take 6 snaps and make that representative of the season. What I am concerned about with Stephon Diggs is that he might be the 3rd best wide receiver on Houston. Like Tank Dell and Nico Collins might actually be better than him at this point of his career. And so when you're looking at, a 30, 31-year-old Stephon Diggs, he's going to be playing majorly from the slot. And my guess is primarily in 2 wide receiver sets. They're going to mix him in on the outside every once in a while. Nico Collins is the staple you can count on being out on the field in 2 wide receiver sets. They're going to mix in Tank Dell as well in 2 wide receiver sets. Stephon Diggs is going to be relegated to the slot. I just think the big play potential isn't quite as there, but he's the one I'm most concerned about at his current ADP as well. So Stephon Diggs is one I'm concerned about. And then let me think of one at the running back position. DeAndre Swift is another guy I'm concerned about. I just talked about him in our most recent episode of 6 players to let your league mates draft over on our podcast. Sound quality did not turn out for Lord knows what reason. StreamYard was giving us fits last night when we were trying to download afterwards. I don't know what happened. We all sounded clear on the episode, but DeAndre Swift is a guy I'm concerned about. The situation is worse than the Eagles. He was the running back 24 in fantasy points per game last year, yet we're drafting him as the running back 20. Could he score more touchdowns this year without the tush push? Sure. But I don't think, I think we're like misdiagnosing that then, because we didn't fall in love with DeAndre Swift to be a goal line back, a running back who scores 8+ touchdowns every year. We fell in love with DeAndre Swift because he's so freaking good at catching the ball. And when he gets in space, he can make so much happen. I just don't think the targets are going to be there when you have Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, who's going to be, I think, going to be the alpha of that room. And you just spent the 9th overall pick on Rome Odunze, who I think, again, could have a nice little rookie bump after the bye week. So I just don't see a world where DeAndre Swift draws more than 50 targets this year. And he's going to need to if he's going to return on running back 20. This Bears offensive line isn't as good as the Eagles. The offense isn't as good as the Philadelphia Eagles. It's just plain and simple. Why are we drafting him ahead of where he finished in fantasy points per game last year when quite literally everything is about a situation got worse, except for the potential probability that he could score more touchdowns. He was 9th in rush attempts inside of the 10-yard line, goal-to-goal situations last year. He only scored 5 rushing touchdowns on 27 attempts inside of the 10-yard line. Not a great hit rate. So that's why I am out on DeAndre Swift. I'm worried about him as well, not returning on ADP. Yeah, here we go. Jerry agrees. Diggs was great a few years back, but it's Nico's time now. I would agree. Alrighty. I got to hop off, y'all. I got a few more things I need to attend to tonight, but thanks for tuning in. Cameron and Tyler will be live on Monday next week. I'll be live on Wednesday again as well. We'll continue doing some fantasy football Q&A. We'll draft another team on Underdog here. So again, if you want to hop in next week, code fellas over on Underdog Fantasy. They'll match your first deposit 50% up to $250. They'll give you a Breece Hall free square as well. Half a total yard in week 1. That's all he needs, and that pick wins in your entry. And you'll get our 2024 draft guide for free as well. So again, Underdog Fantasy code fellas. Make sure to go support them because they support us. Thanks for tuning in, y'all. Appreciate you all so much. Again, make sure you're subbed, turn on those notifications. Like the stream. We'll see you all next week. Deuces.